I want you to think back to your last checkup. You sat in that small, sterile room, waiting for the results of your blood work. Your doctor walked in, looking at a clipboard with a concerned expression. They pointed to a specific number on your lipid panel. Your total cholesterol was over 200. Your LDL was high. With a grave tone, they told you that you were a walking time bomb. They told you that your arteries were clogging up like old lead pipes in a crumbling house. They told you that if you didn't act now, a catastrophic heart attack was not a matter of if, but when. And then they handed you a slip of paper, a prescription for a statin drug, Lipitor, Zocker, Crestor. They told you this little pill was a miracle of modern science. They told you it would scrub your blood clean and grant you 10 more years of life. You took that prescription to the pharmacy, feeling a mixture of terror and relief. You have been swallowing that pill every single night before bed, believing you were shielding your heart from disaster. But I am here today to deliver a terrifying medical truth that is being suppressed by a trillion-dollar pharmaceutical machine. You have been sold a lie that is physically hollowing out your body. You are not protecting your heart. You are participating in the systematic chemical deconstruction of your muscles, your nerves, and your brain. For the last 40 years, the American senior has been the victim of the greatest scientific fraud ever perpetrated. The cholesterol myth was not designed to save your life. It was designed to create a lifetime of dependency on a drug that treats a symptom while actively destroying the host. In this unprecedented 7-part masterclass, we are going to dismantle the statin scam piece by piece. We are going to dive into the deep, dark history of how the food industry and the drug companies conspired to turn a vital, life-giving nutrient, cholesterol, into a biological villain. We are going to reveal why lowering your numbers is often the fastest way to accelerate dementia, muscle wasting, and total hormonal collapse. This is not just a health talk. This is a battle for your physical and cognitive independence. If you live in a retirement community in Florida, if you are enjoying your golden years in Arizona, or if you are simply a senior trying to navigate the confusing world of modern medicine, you must pay attention. Your doctor is following a standard of care that was written by the very companies that sell the pills. Let us start with the fundamental biological fraud, the idea that cholesterol causes heart disease. Cholesterol is not a poison. It is the most important molecule in the human body. Every single cell membrane in your system is built from cholesterol. It is the structural glue that keeps your cells from falling apart. Your brain is made of nearly 25% of the body's total cholesterol. It is the raw material for your sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. It is the precursor to vitamin D, which is the master switch for your immune system. If cholesterol is so deadly, why did nature put it in every single cell of your body? Why does your liver produce over 1,000 milligrams of it every single day, regardless of what you eat? Nature does not make mistakes. The pharmaceutical industry does. They told you that cholesterol is like grease in the blood. They used a simplistic plumbing metaphor to scare you into submission. They showed you pictures of yellow gunk blocking an artery and told you that eating eggs and butter was the cause. But a heart attack is not a plumbing problem. A heart attack is an inflammatory disaster. Cholesterol is not the arsonist that starts the fire in your arteries. Cholesterol is the firefighter. When your arteries are damaged by high blood sugar, industrial seed oils, and chronic stress, they become inflamed and scarred. Your body sends cholesterol to the site of the damage to act as a biological bandage. When the doctor looks at your clogged artery and blames the cholesterol, it is like looking at a house fire and blaming the firemen because they are at the scene. They are blaming the repair crew for the damage. By taking a statin, you are effectively firing the repair crew. You are forcing your liver to stop producing the very substance your body uses to heal itself. You might lower the number on the blood test, but you are leaving your arteries inflamed, unpatched, and vulnerable to a massive rupture. And the price you pay for that lower number is devastating. Statins work by blocking an enzyme in your liver called HMG-CoA, a reductase. But this enzyme doesn't just make cholesterol. It is the same biological pathway that produces a vital nutrient called coenzyme Q10, or CoQ10. CoQ10 is the spark plug of your mitochondria. It is the only way your heart and your muscles can produce energy. When you take a statin, you are not just lowering cholesterol. You are chemically suffocating the energy production of your heart. This is the statin paradox. You are taking a drug to protect your heart that is physically draining the energy from your heart muscle. This is why millions of American seniors on statins suffer from statin-induced myopathy, unexplained muscle pain, weakness in the legs, and a feeling that they have aged 20 years in a single month. But the pharmaceutical companies don't want to talk about the energy depletion. They want to talk about relative risk. They use statistical tricks to make you believe these drugs save thousands of lives, when in reality, for the average senior with no history of heart disease, the benefit is almost zero, while the risk of side effects is nearly 100%. You are being traded. Your muscle mass, your cognitive clarity, and your vitality are being traded for a better number on a lab report. In this masterclass, we are going to walk away from the fear. We are going to stop being victims of the lipid panel and start becoming masters of our own biology. We have uncovered the rot in the foundation of the cholesterol myth. Now, we prepare for the deep dive into the brain-statin connection and the hidden inflammatory killers in the American diet. We have identified the fundamental fraud of the cholesterol myth. Now, we must look at the most devastating, most silent, and most ignored side effect of the statin scam. I am talking about the systematic chemical destruction of the American senior's brain. If you have been feeling foggy lately, if you find yourself walking into a room and forgetting why you are there, or if you feel like your sharp, quick-witted mind is slowly being replaced by a thick, gray cloud, you need to listen very carefully. Your doctor will tell you it is just early-stage dementia. They will tell you it is just normal aging. But the truth is much more sinister. You are likely suffering from what we in the functional medicine world call statin brain. To understand why a heart drug is destroying your memory, you have to understand the sheer biological importance of cholesterol to your central nervous system. Your brain is only about 2% of your total body weight, yet it contains nearly 25% of your body's total cholesterol. Your brain does not just like cholesterol. Your brain is literally made of it. Every single nerve fiber in your brain is wrapped in a protective coating called the myelin sheath. Think of this as the electrical tape that surrounds the wires in your house. If that tape is thick and strong, the electrical signals travel at lightning speed. Your memory is sharp. Your speech is fluid. Your balance is perfect. But that electrical tape is composed primarily of cholesterol. When you take a statin drug, you are not just blocking the production of cholesterol in your liver. These drugs are designed to be systemic. They cross the blood-brain barrier. They enter the delicate environment of your cranium, and they tell your brain cells to stop manufacturing the very material they need to maintain the wiring. Imagine what happens to an old house when the electrical tape on the wires starts to dry up and crack. The signals short-circuit, the lights flicker. Eventually, the system fails. This is exactly what is happening to the American senior. By forcing your cholesterol levels down to target numbers that were arbitrarily decided by pharmaceutical committees, you are physically thinning the protective coating of your nerves. You are chemically engineering a state of brain rot. There is a terrifying phenomenon called transient global amnesia. It is a state where a person suddenly loses all sense of time and identity for several hours. Studies have shown a direct, undeniable link between high-dose statins and these terrifying episodes of total memory erasure. Yet when a senior reports memory loss to their doctor, the doctor almost never looks at the statin. They look at the birthday. But the betrayal goes even deeper than the structural wiring. We have to talk about the synaptic gap. Your brain cells communicate by sending chemicals across tiny gaps called synapses. To do this, they use vesicles, tiny transport bubbles that carry the neurotransmitters. These bubbles are made of cholesterol. Without enough cholesterol, your brain cells cannot talk to each other. Your processing speed drops. You become a slower, dimmer version of yourself. And why is this being allowed to happen? Why are we sacrificing the minds of our seniors for a heart drug? Because of a massive statistical deception called relative risk reduction. When you see a commercial for a statin, they will scream that it reduces your risk of a heart attack by 36%. That sounds like a miracle, doesn't it? If you have a 1 in 3 chance of being saved, you'd be a fool not to take the pill. But this is a lie of relative versus absolute risk. Imagine I have a lottery where 2 people out of 100 win. If I change the rules so that 3 people win, I can tell you that I have increased your chances of winning by 50%. That is the relative risk. It sounds huge. But in reality, your absolute chance only went from 2% to 3%, a tiny 1% difference. In the major statin trials, the absolute risk reduction for a senior with no heart disease is often less than 1%. This means you have to treat 100 people for 5 years to prevent just 1 heart attack. But while that 99% of people received zero benefit, nearly 100% of them suffered from the hidden energy depletion and the structural brain thinning we are talking about today. The pharmaceutical industry trades your absolute cognitive health for a relative statistical trick. They want you to be a compliant patient. They want you to keep your numbers low, even if it means you can no longer remember the names of your grandchildren. They want you to fear the cholesterol in your eggs while ignoring the chemical fire in your brain. But the brain is a self-repairing masterpiece. If you give it the stable, ancestral fats it needs, if you stop the chemical starvation of your nerves, the fog can lift. The wiring can be reinforced. However, before we talk about restoration, we have to talk about the physical pain. We have to talk about why your legs feel like lead and why your joints ache every time you try to go for a walk. In the next part of this 7-part masterclass, we are going to dive into the muscle mitochondria disaster. I am going to show you exactly how statins are physically dissolving your muscle tissue and why the CoQ10 blackout is the real reason you feel 20 years older than you actually are. Your mind is your most precious asset. Do not let a statistical lie take it away from you. We have exposed the fraud. We have revealed the chemical fog in your brain. Now, we must talk about the physical agony. I want to speak directly to the man who can no longer get out of his favorite armchair without letting out a groan of pain. I want to speak to the woman who used to love gardening, but now finds that her calves and her thighs feel like they are made of heavy, cold lead after just 10 minutes in the sun. You wake up in the morning and your body feels stiff. Your muscles ache with a deep, throbbing soreness that doesn't go away with rest. You tell your doctor about this during your follow-up appointment. You tell them, "Doctor, my legs are killing me. I feel weak. I feel like I've aged 20 years in the last 6 months." And what does your doctor say? They give you that patronizing smile. They look at your birth year on the chart and they say, "Well, you aren't getting any younger. That's just part of being a senior." It's probably just a little bit of fibromyalgia or normal age-related sarcopenia. But then they check your lab results. They see that your cholesterol has dropped from 240 down to 140. They beam with pride. They tell you that you are winning. They tell you that the drug is doing its job. I am here to tell you that you are not winning. You are being physically deconstructed from the inside out. Your muscles are not aching because you are old. Your muscles are aching because they are being chemically starved of their primary energy source. You are a victim of the CoQ10 blackout. To understand the sheer biological violence of statin drugs, we have to look at the assembly line in your liver. As I mentioned in part 1, statins block an enzyme called HMG-CoA, a reductase. The pharmaceutical industry wants you to believe this enzyme only makes cholesterol. This is a catastrophic biological lie. That enzyme is the master switch for a massive biochemical pathway called the mevalonate pathway. Think of this as a factory assembly line. Cholesterol is just one product at the very end of that line. But midway through that same assembly line, your body produces a substance called coenzyme Q10, or CoQ10. CoQ10 is not a supplement. It is the absolute non-negotiable spark plug of your mitochondria. Every single cell in your body, especially your high-energy heart and your massive leg muscles, depends on mitochondria to produce ATP, the currency of life. CoQ10 is the shuttle that carries the electrical charges inside those mitochondria. Without CoQ10, the spark plugs don't fire. The engines don't turn. The cellular power grid goes black. When you take a statin, you are effectively cutting the power lines to your own muscles. This is why millions of American seniors suffer from what is clinically called statin-induced myopathy. It starts as a dull ache, then it becomes weakness. In its most severe form, it becomes rhabdomyolysis, a horrifying condition where your muscle tissue literally begins to dissolve and die, releasing toxic proteins into your bloodstream that can shut down your kidneys. But for most of you, it's a slow-motion deconstruction. Your muscles are constantly in a state of energy crisis. Because they don't have enough CoQ10, they cannot repair themselves from the normal wear and tear of daily life. They become thin. They become brittle. You lose your functional strength. In America, we have an epidemic of the frailty trap. A senior starts a statin. Their legs become weak. Because their legs are weak, they stop walking. Because they stop walking, they lose their balance. Because they lose their balance, they fall and break a hip. And here is the ultimate irony, the absolute peak of the statin scam. Your heart is a muscle. The very organ you are trying to protect is the most CoQ10 hungry muscle in your entire body. Your heart beats 100,000 times a day. It requires more mitochondrial energy than any other tissue. When you take a statin to protect your heart, you are chemically depleting the CoQ10 levels in your heart muscle by up to 40%. You are weakening the pump. You are predisposing yourself to congestive heart failure. Studies have shown that statins can actually increase the calcification of your coronary arteries. They make the plumbing look better on a test, but they make the pump and the pipes more rigid and less energetic. So why aren't the cardiologists screaming about this? Because they are focused on the cholesterol number like it's a high score in a video game. They have been brainwashed to believe that the number is the only thing that matters. They ignore the fact that the patient can no longer walk to their mailbox. They ignore the fact that the patient's heart is literally gasping for energy. They tell you to take a CoQ10 supplement to offset the side effects. Think about the insanity of that logic. They are giving you a drug that poisons your natural energy production, and then telling you to buy a synthetic version of that energy to try and stay alive. But you cannot supplement your way out of a systemic chemical blockade. As long as the statin is in your system, the assembly line is broken. The physical deconstruction of the senior body is the price being paid for a trillion-dollar pharmaceutical profit margin. They have traded your mobility for a lab result. They have traded your strength for a statistical trick. But your body is not a machine that can just be managed by blocking its natural pathways. You are a biological miracle that requires cholesterol for structure and CoQ10 for fire. In this 7-part masterclass, we are moving past the pain and into the deep systemic reality, because the damage doesn't stop with your muscles. In the next part of this series, we are going to dive into the hormonal collapse. I am going to show you exactly how statins are physically castrating the American senior by stealing the raw materials needed for testosterone and estrogen. I am going to show you why low T and statin use are two sides of the same coin. Your strength is your independence. Do not let a spark plug thief take it away from you. We have discussed the brain. We have discussed the muscles. But now, we have to talk about the very essence of what makes you feel like a man or a woman. We have to talk about your life force. We are diving into the most sensitive, yet most devastating consequence of the statin scam, the total endocrine collapse. I want to speak to the man who feels like the fire has gone out in his marriage. I want to speak to the woman who feels like her vitality, her skin, and her bone density have suddenly evaporated. You feel a loss of drive. You feel a persistent, low-level depression. You feel a lack of ambition that you never had in your 50s or 60s. You go to your doctor and you explain these symptoms. You talk about the loss of libido. You talk about the weight gain around your midsection that won't go away. You talk about the mood swings. And what do? They give you another prescription. They give you a blue pill for the bedroom. They give you an antidepressant for your mood. They give you a bone density drug for your osteoporosis. They never once look at the statin. They never once connect the dots between the drug that blocks your cholesterol and the total collapse of your hormonal system. This is the biological reality. Cholesterol is the mother molecule of every single steroid hormone in the human body. Imagine your body as a high-end construction site. To build a strong, resilient building, you need raw materials. In the human endocrine system, cholesterol is the raw lumber. It is the fundamental building block. Inside your cells, there is a process where your body takes cholesterol and converts it into a precursor hormone called pregnenolone. From pregnenolone, your body manufactures testosterone. It manufactures estrogen. It manufactures progesterone. It manufactures cortisol, the hormone you need to manage stress. When you take a statin, you are effectively cutting off the supply of lumber to the construction site. You are forcing your cholesterol levels down to target numbers that are biologically unnatural. When your total cholesterol drops too low, your testes and your ovaries no longer have the raw materials they need to produce your sex hormones. This is what I call chemical castration by prescription. For the American senior man, this is a disaster. Testosterone is not just about the bedroom. Testosterone is what maintains your muscle mass. It is what keeps your heart muscle strong. It is what protects your cognitive function. When you take a statin and your testosterone plummets, you develop low T symptoms that accelerate your aging by decades. You lose your muscle. You gain body fat. Your bones become brittle. And for the American senior woman, the loss of estrogen and progesterone due to cholesterol starvation is equally catastrophic. It accelerates the onset of osteoporosis. It causes severe vaginal dryness and loss of skin elasticity. It triggers a state of permanent brain fog that no amount of coffee or exercise can fix. But the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want to talk about hormones. They want to talk about prevention. They tell you that your cholesterol is high, so you must take the pill. Then, when your hormones collapse and you become depressed and frail, they sell you more pills to treat those side effects. It is a perfect, self-sustaining loop of pharmaceutical profit. And we cannot forget the most important hormone of all, which isn't even a vitamin: vitamin D. Vitamin D is actually a corticosteroid hormone. It is responsible for over 3,000 genes in your body. It is the master regulator of your immune system. It is how you fight off cancer. It is how you prevent the flu. But how does your body make vitamin D? It requires a specific form of cholesterol in your skin called 7-dehydrocholesterol. When the UVB rays from the sun hit your skin, they interact with that cholesterol to synthesize vitamin D. If you are on a high-dose statin, you are depleting the very cholesterol your skin needs to catch the sun. You develop a chronic, systemic vitamin D deficiency that no amount of fortified milk can fix. You become immunocompromised. You become vulnerable to every virus and every chronic disease. You are being sold a drug that protects your heart while it simultaneously dismantles your ability to fight infection, maintain your muscles, and enjoy your life. Why is this being ignored? Because the endocrine system is complicated. It takes time for a doctor to sit down and look at the interplay between your lipids and your hormones. It's much faster to just look at a number on a lab report and say, "Keep taking the pill." They have turned the American senior into a statin ghost, a person with perfect numbers on a piece of paper, but with no drive, no strength, no libido, and a failing immune system. But the body is resilient. Your hormonal factory is still there. The machinery is just waiting for the raw materials to return. I want to tell you about a patient of mine. We will call him Robert. Robert was the perfect patient. For 15 years, he did everything his cardiologist told him to do. He stopped eating red meat. He replaced his butter with industrial margarine. And most importantly, he never missed a dose of his high-potency statin. Every year, Robert would go in for his physical. His total cholesterol was 130. His LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, was at a level so low it made the nurses cheer. His doctor told him he had the blood of a teenager. He was told he was bulletproof. 6 months later, while Robert was playing golf with his friends in the South Carolina sun, he collapsed. He suffered a massive, near-fatal myocardial infarction. How is this possible? How can a man with perfect numbers, a man who has chemically scrubbed the cholesterol out of his blood for over a decade, still have a heart that is failing? The answer lies in the most terrifying, most paradoxical secret of the pharmaceutical industry. I am talking about the calcification paradox. You have been told that statins clean your arteries. You have been led to believe that they act like a biological Drano, flushing the gunk out of your pipes. But modern imaging technology, specifically the electron beam CT scan, has revealed a reality that is the exact opposite of the marketing. Multiple high-level clinical studies have shown that long-term statin use does not decrease the calcification of your arteries. In many cases, it significantly increases it. Your arteries are physically turning to stone, and the drug you are taking to protect your heart is acting as the catalyst. To understand this, we have to look at the missing link of heart health, vitamin K2. In the American medical system, we are obsessed with vitamin D and vitamin C, but almost no one talks about vitamin K2. Yet, K2 is the master traffic cop of your mineral system. Its only job is to tell calcium where to go. It tells calcium to stay in your bones and your teeth, and it tells calcium to stay out of your heart and your soft tissues. To do this job, vitamin K2 must activate a specific protein called matrix GLA protein, or MGP. Think of MGP as a biological vacuum cleaner that stays inside your artery walls. When it is activated, it sucks up any stray calcium and flushes it out before it can harden into plaque. But here is the biological tragedy. The activation of MGP requires a specific chemical signal that comes from the same assembly line in your liver that produces cholesterol. When you take a statin, you aren't just blocking cholesterol. You aren't just blocking CoQ10. You are blocking the production of the molecules required to activate vitamin K2. By taking the pill, you are effectively firing the traffic cop. You are turning off the biological vacuum cleaner in your arteries. Without the activated MGP to protect you, the calcium in your blood begins to settle. It embeds itself into the lining of your coronary arteries. It deposits itself onto your heart valves. Day after day, year after year, your arteries become more rigid. They become brittle. They lose their ability to expand and contract with your heartbeat. This is why Robert had a heart attack despite his low cholesterol. His pipes weren't clogged with grease. They were made of glass. And when his heart needed to pump harder during that golf game, his brittle, calcified arteries couldn't handle the pressure. They cracked. This is the ultimate betrayal. The drug company shows you a blood test that looks clean. They show you a total cholesterol number that makes you feel safe. But they never show you the CT scan of your heart. They never tell you that while your blood looks perfect, your heart is physically becoming a fossil. They use a clever term for this. They call it stabilizing the plaque. They tell doctors that statins make the plaque harder and therefore less likely to rupture. Think about the insanity of that logic. They are telling you that turning your soft, flexible living tissue into a hard, calcified rock is a benefit. It is not a benefit. It is a death sentence for your cardiovascular flexibility. It is the reason why millions of seniors on statins develop high blood pressure that won't go away, because their arteries have lost the ability to flex. It is the reason why heart failure is exploding in the senior population. Why aren't they telling you about vitamin K2? Why aren't they telling you about arterial calcification? Because you can't patent vitamin K2. It is a natural nutrient found in fermented foods and grass-fed fats. There is no trillion-dollar profit margin in telling a senior to eat high-quality brie cheese or natto. They want you to stay focused on the cholesterol demon. They want you to keep looking at the bad LDL while ignoring the stone heart growing in your chest. You are being sold a false sense of security, while your biological foundation is being replaced with concrete. But the body is an adaptive miracle. Your arteries can regain their flexibility. The vacuum cleaner can be turned back on. I want you to imagine a scenario that is playing out in thousands of doctors' offices across America every single day. A senior, perhaps someone just like you, goes in for their 6-month checkup. They have been on a high-dose statin for 3 years. Their cholesterol is low. Their doctor is happy. But during this visit, the doctor looks at a different number on the lab report. The hemoglobin A1C. The doctor looks up with a puzzled expression and says, "I don't understand it. You've been eating a low-fat diet. You've been taking your heart medication, but your blood sugar is climbing. Your A1C is now at 6.4. You are officially pre-diabetic. If it goes any higher, we're going to have to put you on metformin or maybe even insulin." The senior is devastated. They feel like they have failed. They feel like their body is simply giving up on them. They ask the doctor why this is happening. The doctor shrugs and says, "It's just your genetics, or maybe you're just getting older. It happens to a lot of people in their 70s. I am here to tell you that it is not your genetics. It is not your age, and you have not failed. You are a victim of the diabetes trap. There is a massive, undeniable, and scientifically proven link between long-term statin use and the sudden onset of type 2 diabetes in American seniors. Major clinical trials, including the Jupiter study, revealed that seniors taking these drugs had a significantly higher risk of developing diabetes compared to those who didn't. In some studies, the risk increase was as high as 46%. You are being sold a drug to protect your heart that is simultaneously destroying your metabolism. You are trading a lower cholesterol number for a disease that is the leading cause of blindness, kidney failure, and limb amputation in the United States. To understand why a heart drug causes diabetes, we have to look at the microscopic gatekeepers of your cells. Every time you eat, your blood sugar rises. To keep you safe, your pancreas releases insulin. The job of insulin is to act like a key, unlocking the doors to your cells so the sugar can enter and be burned for energy. These doors are controlled by specific transport proteins called GLUT4. But GLUT4 transporters are incredibly sensitive. They depend on the structural integrity of the cell membrane. And as we have established throughout this masterclass, your cell membranes are built from cholesterol. When you take a statin and you artificially, violently lower your cholesterol levels, you are weakening the very structure of your cell membranes. You are making the doors to your cells stiff and unresponsive. The insulin key no longer fits the lock. This is the definition of insulin resistance. The sugar stays in your blood. It begins to caramelize your proteins. It begins to damage your kidneys and your eyes. Your pancreas, sensing the high sugar, pumps out even more insulin to compensate. This high insulin creates a massive wave of systemic inflammation that travels straight back to your arteries, causing the very damage that the statin was supposed to prevent. But the betrayal goes even deeper into the pancreas itself. Inside your pancreas, you have specialized cells called beta cells. These are the factories that manufacture your insulin. These factories are powered by mitochondria. And as we learned in Part 3, statins deplete the CoQ10 that those mitochondria need to produce energy. When the beta cells are starved of energy, they can no longer produce enough insulin to keep up with the demand. The factories begin to shut down. You are being hit with a double whammy. Your cells are resisting the insulin you have, and your pancreas can no longer make enough to overcome that resistance. This is the perfect recipe for a lifetime of metabolic dependency. And what does the medical establishment do? Do they stop the statin? Do they admit that the heart drug caused the diabetes? Almost never. Instead, they give you a second prescription. They put you on a glucose-lowering medication. Then, because the high blood sugar and the statin together cause nerve damage, they give you a third pill for neuropathy. Then, because your blood pressure rises from the insulin resistance, they give you a fourth pill for hypertension. Before you know it, you are a multi-pill senior. You are taking 5, 7, or 10 medications every single day. You are no longer a patient. You are a profit center for the pharmaceutical industry. The American senior is being trapped in a prescription cascade. One drug causes a side effect, which is then diagnosed as a new disease, requiring a new drug. They have turned the natural, self-healing human body into a chemical battlefield. In Eastern medicine, we don't look at blood sugar as an isolated number. We look at the health of the spleen and the kidneys. We look at the digestive fire that is required to transform food into life. When you take a statin, you are dumping cold, toxic phlegm into your system. This phlegm stagnates in the spleen, extinguishing the digestive fire. In Eastern terms, diabetes is known as zio-ki, wasting and thirsting. It is a state where the body's vital fluids are being burned off by the internal heat of chronic inflammation. By taking the statin, you are fueling the internal heat while simultaneously freezing the digestive fire. You are creating a biological contradiction that leads to the total exhaustion of your life force. Why aren't the doctors telling you this? Because the diabetes industry is just as profitable as the cholesterol industry. They don't want a cured patient. They want a managed patient who buys insulin and glucose strips for the next 30 years. They want you to stay focused on your LDL number while your metabolism burns to the ground. But your metabolism is not a one-way street. Your cells can regain their sensitivity. Your pancreas can regain its energy. The doors to your cells can be repaired. We have spent the last 6 chapters uncovering $1 trillion biological betrayal. We have seen how the statin scam thins your brain, suffocates your heart muscle, castrates your hormones, turns your arteries to stone, and traps you in the nightmare of type 2 diabetes. If you are listening to this, you might feel a mixture of anger and absolute exhaustion. You might look at that orange plastic bottle on your nightstand and realize it is a monument to a medical system that has prioritized profit over your vitality. But I am not here to leave you in a state of fear. Anger is only useful if it is converted into action. Today, we are moving into the final and most important phase of your journey, the restoration protocol. We are going to do something that your cardiologist thinks is impossible. We are going to rebuild your system from the inside out. We are going to restore your mother molecule, cholesterol, and we are going to reignite the spark plugs of your mitochondria. Before we begin, I must say this. Do not simply throw your medication in the trash today. You must be a scientific advocate for your own body. Go to your doctor. Show them the absolute risk reduction data. Demand a calcium CT scan to see the real state of your arteries. Force them to treat you as a human being, not a lab result. Step 1 in the restoration is the great lipid reclamation. Your brain and your nerves are starving for the materials you have been denying them for years. You must stop the low-fat madness immediately. You must embrace the ancestral fats that built the human brain for 2 million years. You must flood your system with grass-fed ghee, virgin coconut oil, and the yolks of pasture-raised eggs. Do not fear the cholesterol in these foods. Your brain is begging for it to repair the cracked electrical tape of your myelin sheaths. These stable, saturated fats provide the structural foundation for your hormones. When you provide the lumber, your endocrine factory can finally start producing the testosterone and estrogen you need to feel alive again. Step 2 is the mitochondrial resuscitation. To reverse the CoQ10 blackout, you must replenish the spark plugs. While you transition away from the chemical blockade, you must supplement with high-dose ubiquinol, the active, reduced form of CoQ10. This is the only way to restart the engines in your heart and your fading leg muscles. But you must also provide the cables for the electricity. This means a massive intake of magnesium glycinate and potassium. These minerals are the electrolytes that allow your heart to pump with strength and flexibility. Without them, your heart is just a weak muscle trying to push blood through rigid pipes. Step 3 is the Eastern fire ignition. We must address the cold phlegm that has settled in your spleen and kidneys. We must reignite your Mingmen fire, the internal furnace that transforms your food into life. In the Eastern tradition, we use warming, blood-moving herbs to clear the stagnation of the statin. You must incorporate high-potency ginger and Korean red ginseng into your daily protocol. Ginseng is not just a stimulant, it is an adaptogen. It tells your body how to manage stress and physically forces your mitochondria to produce more ATP. It is the biological antidote to the statin fatigue. To clear the arterial calcification, you must utilize the traffic cop we discussed in Part 5. You must consume high-dose vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 variant. You can find this in fermented foods like natto or high-quality aged cheeses. This is the biological vacuum cleaner that will pull the stone out of your heart and put it back into your bones where it belongs. Step 4 is the insulin sensitivity reset. To escape the diabetes trap, you must repair the doors to your cells. This requires a complete removal of industrial seed oils and a return to the paleo-senior way of eating. You must implement intermittent fasting. By giving your body 16 hours of rest from food, you trigger autophagy, a state where your body identifies and recycles the damaged, statin cells and replaces them with fresh, high-cholesterol membranes that are sensitive to insulin. Step 5 is the vagus nerve and meridian reboot. We must reconnect the brain and the gut. You must perform the gargling and humming exercises every morning to wake up the telephone line to your internal organs. And you must stimulate the stomach 36 point on your shins every single day. This is the master switch that tells your body to move the blood, clear the stagnation, and restore the vital chi to your lower extremities. Furthermore, you must reclaim your vitamin D essence. Stop fearing the sun. Spend 20 minutes every day with your skin exposed to the UVB rays. This is the only way to synthesize the master hormone that regulates your entire immune system. You are standing at a crossroads. One path leads back to the standard of care. It leads to more pills, more frailty, more memory loss, and a life spent as a managed patient in a trillion-dollar profit cycle. The other path leads to biological independence. It is the path of the warrior senior. It requires the discipline to eat ancestral foods, the courage to challenge medical authority, and the wisdom to trust the self-healing miracle of your own body. Your heart was not designed to be a fossil. Your brain was not designed to be a cloud. Your muscles were not designed to be lead. You have the blueprint, you have the protocol, now you must have the will. The cholesterol line is the wall that has been standing between you and your true vitality. Today, we have torn that wall down. I am Dr. Kim from Senior Health. You have been a student of the truth for 7 chapters. Now, it is time for you to be a master of your own life. Go forth, nourish your essence, move your blood, and never, ever let a lab result tell you who you are or how long